Okay, hyperbole. I know you already know what hyperbole is. You've probably been dealing with it since you were in fourth grade, right? So it's exaggeration, it's overstatement. Why do we want to point out and potentially talk about hyperbole in poetry when it occurs? Um, well, one thing that you might do, and this is the most basic level, is whatever is being exaggerated. You can say that X that's being exaggerated is very blank, right? It's whatever very big or very small, or you could just even say that hyperbole draws attention to whatever it is that's being hyperbolized. However, that's a little, it's acceptable, but it's not very insightful. And you're looking for insight in your writing. You always want to try and connect back to meaning. Think back to when we did alliteration, and I said, well, yes, using alliteration draws attention to the idea that's being expressed in the words that have alliteration, or the phrases that have alliteration. But it's better if you can connect somehow the sound of the alliteration to the sound that's created through that alliterative experience to the meaning, right? So what you want to do is you always want to connect the hyperbole, what's being exaggerated, to a meaning, to an idea that it's connected to. So, for example, let's look at I wandered lonely as a cloud, right? Which you already know. You've already read this one. You read this one our first time through. I wandered lonely as a cloud, et cetera, et cetera. Second stanza begins, continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. And this may not stand out to you as really strong hyperbole, but it is hyperbolic, right? He's saying that the daffodils are as continuous as the stars in the Milky Way. And even back, when this was written before space travel, that is an exaggeration, right? So you might say, if you were doing kind of something acceptable but low level, not very insightful, you might say, but he emphasizes the number of daffodils to say kind of how overwhelming the scene is by, using a hyperbolic comparison or, association with the stars in the Milky Way, right? Fine, right? But what's more insightful, right? By comparing it, because this is also a simile, right? By comparing it to the Milky Way, um, he is he's expanding the view of the daffodils and the experience of the daffodils beyond the terrestrial plane. He's bringing in the heavens into this experience and making us associate the heavens, the beyond, the greatness of space in with this experience. So he could have said continuous as the grains of sands on a shore, right? The daffodils were as numberous, were numbered like that. So that's a lot of grains of sand on the shore, right? So I could do the same kind of thing, but that keeps us down on earth, right? And it gives a completely different experience. So you want to think about, with the exaggeration, is there anything in that exaggeration that can help to open up an experience in the poem? And we know from our memory in this poem that this was a transformative experience of having viewed the daffodils, and so transformative, in fact, that when he is depressed and sitting in his couch, they flash upon the inward eye, and the experience happens again because it was that impressive, that transformative, that memorable, had that kind of great effect on the imagination. And certainly using a simile that hyperbolically compares the daffodils, the number of daffodils, to the stars in the Milky Way, to the galaxy level, does something there, right? There's something that's big and broad there that you want to consider that helps the idea in the poem.